Today we're going to take a look at reflections. How do you perform a reflection? We're going to take a look at what vocabulary you'll need to know for a reflection, perform a reflection on a coordinate plane, and apply the rules for graphing reflections. What vocabulary do I need to know? What is reflection? This is a congruence transformation in which a figure is flipped over a line of symmetry. Line of symmetry. The line that a figure is reflected over when performing a reflection. We also call it a mirror image. Important information. When reflecting a figure, each point and its image are the same distance from the line of symmetry. Number 2. How do I perform a reflection on the coordinate plane? So we're going to take a look at example 1. It says reflect triangle ABC over the x-axis. When we're reflecting, it means to flip a figure. If a point is above the x-axis, we're going to move it the same distance below the x-axis. If a point is below the x-axis, then we're going to move it the same distance above the x-axis. So let's apply that rule. Okay, let's look at example 1. Reflect triangle ABC over the x-axis. So I'm just going to go ahead and label the x-axis for you. So here's my x, and remember, this is my y. So we are just going to reflect over the x-axis. So I'm going to take triangle ABC and reflect it over the x-axis. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take each and every point, and then we're going to find out the distance between each point from the x-axis. So let's start with A. So we're going to count the distance. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So A is 5 spaces from my x-axis. So I'm going to do the same thing below the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here is A prime. So we're just going to label A prime. We're going to count the distance for point B. 1, 2 from my x-axis. So I'm going to do the same thing below my x-axis. 1, 2. So here's point B. B prime. Point C, 1, 2 spaces away from my x-axis. I'm going to count the same number below my x-axis. 1, 2. So let's go ahead and label C prime. Hope that makes sense. So now all I have to do is create my shape. Hope that makes sense. So now triangle ABC is reflected across the x-axis. Example number 2. We are going to reflect triangle ABC over the y-axis. Let's fill in that rule. If a point is left of the y-axis, we're going to move it the same distance right of the y-axis. If a point is right of the y-axis, we're going to move it the same distance left of the y-axis. Let's practice. So remember, after you make your points, you're going to connect and label your image as prime. Example 2. Reflect triangle ABC over the y-axis. So earlier we performed a reflection over the x-axis. Now we're going to perform a reflection over the y. So let me go ahead and label that for you again. So here's my x, here's my y-axis. So we are going to take triangle ABC and reflect it over the y-axis. My point A is the same distance from my y-axis on the left and on the right. So let's count. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's 5 distance away from my y-axis. So I'm going to make sure move it to the right 5 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here I'm going to label my A prime. We're going to move point B Let's determine the distance from our y-axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5. We're going to move the same distance to the right from my y-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So here is my B prime. Let's move point C. It's 1 away from my y-axis, and I do the same, move it 1 away from my y-axis. So this is prime C. So now let's just go ahead and make sure we create our image. So we just performed a reflection over the y-axis. Hope that makes sense. What are the coordinate rules for graphing reflections? When reflecting over the x-axis, we have a coordinate rule. It states that my x is going to stay the same, but my y is going to change and become the opposite. So let's put that in words. When reflecting over the x-axis, the x stays the same and the y becomes my opposite. For example, I have coordinate 4, 6, and according to the rule, it says my x is going to stay the same, so my 4 stays the same, and my y becomes the opposite. So right now, it's positive 6, so it becomes the opposite, negative 6. Hope that makes sense. Now pause the video and give it a try. Let's see what you got. So we're going to apply the rule where x is going to stay the same. So I'm going to keep my negative 3, and y becomes the opposite. I have positive 4, so it becomes negative 4. Hope you got that. Remember, you can always pause, rewind, rewatch as many times as you like. When reflecting over the y-axis, here's the coordinate rule. My x becomes the opposite and my y stays the same. Let's look at that in words. When reflecting over the y-axis, the y stays the same and my x becomes the opposite. For example, the coordinates 4, 6 becomes where my x becomes the opposite. So positive becomes negative 4 and my y stays the same, 6. Now pause the video and give it a try. Let's see what you got. So we're going to apply the rule where my x is going to become the opposite and my y stays the same. So opposite of my negative 8, that should give me positive 8. And my y is going to stay the same, 12. Hope you got that. Remember, pause, rewind, rewatch as many times as you like.